morning, everyone. I hope you're doing well. It's a bit of a cool and rainy spring morning, so it's a perfect day to get out and go for a hike in my favorite trails. I haven't done this section of the trail before, so I'm really looking forward to heading out this morning, and hopefully the rain holds off just a little bit longer, but I'm not sure if it will or not. Either way though, it's a nice overcast day with some light rain, so it should really make a lot of the bright green spring color show quite brightly in the forest this morning. So I'm gonna head behind me, hit the trail, see if we can find anything interesting. Okay, right behind me is this first scene that I set up to photograph today. And if you look over my shoulder, I've got my 5 DSR set up. Focused in on right over here, there is a small, tiny little sapling growing in a clearing of ferns. And I'm zoomed in right to 70 millimeters with an f2.8 aperture. So I'm looking to actually isolate this small little sapling from its surrounding trees. And I think with the heavy cloud cover today, it's actually going to work really well because the background is nice and dark still. So I'll flip you over, show you the back of the 5 DSR. And this is that tree off in the distance with the arcing tree behind it, the small sapling, and the clearing of ferns around the base of the small tree. I'm focused right in on the tree itself. I'll zoom in. See, I'm focused right in on the leaves. I'm probably gonna have to wait a few moments for the wind to die down because at ISO 100, it's showing an exposure time of, I believe, 1/6 of a second. Yeah. So unless I want to bump up the ISO, I'm probably gonna have to wait just another moment or two until the wind dies down. But I think this is a pretty cool woodland scene and a great start to this morning's hike. Alright, I finally got a break in the wind, so I'm gonna grab this image. ISO 100, f2.8, 1/6 of a second. Let's see how that turns out. Let me know what you think. So I think the reason why I love these trails near where I grew up so much is not because they are particularly loaded with dramatic views like Yosemite or some of the other parks that I go to out on the western half of the US, but rather because when I parked at the trailhead about 2 miles ago, I saw one other car. There's no other trailheads or anything even remotely close to where this one sits. And I've been hiking now for about an hour and a half, and I've yet to see that other person. No idea if I even will today. So even though this trail is actually what I would consider to be challenging to photograph, even though it's really beautiful, it's the ability to get out and get some fresh air and truly unwind that really I don't quite get in a lot of the other really well-known national parks, where they're still not super crowded, but I never go like this an entire day in a wood setting like this and not see another soul. So definitely what I really love about it here. And I'm starting to hear the creek picking up a little heavier, so I think there might be a waterfall or two nearby, and hopefully I can find another image or two before either it gets any brighter, which it looks like the clouds might be thinning out, or it starts to rain heavier. Kind of in a great Goldilocks zone right now, so I'm hoping to take advantage while I can. I'm gonna keep on hiking up the trail, see what else looks interesting. It did take me a little bit of hiking, but I finally came across back through here what I think to be the falls that I was looking to find. So it looks like the water level's pretty high, and rain's holding off. It's still cloudy, so let's go check it out. Well, I made it down to the waterfall that I was looking to photograph, and hopefully you can hear me over the sound of the rushing water. It's actually a bit louder than I was thinking it would have been. So for this scene, I really like the way that the waterfall is splitting between this one outcropping of rock, and then there's this branch that's arcing down over the scene. Behind it, we have some real tall, old-growth trees, and the eye can kind of trace the water as it goes down, cascading down the cliffside. It's a really nice scene, so I'm going to set up and grab this image, and then maybe I'll hike a little bit further down the trail to see if I can find any other interesting framing of the scene. This scene is a little bit more challenging than I was expecting. In addition to the two main waterfalls going around the rock outcropping, there's also a smaller third fall over here to the left that I really want to include in the image. But that's not what's actually making this scene challenging. What is this sapling tree with these overarching branches flowing across the scene. So what I've been trying to do is frame up the scene with the waterfall relatively centered, but still have these branches come across parts of the scene where there is enough dark rock behind them that they still stand out and don't get lost behind with some of the undergrowth and ferns in the distance behind it. So I'm also having the same challenge as yesterday, where the clouds overhead are causing the scene to be just dark enough that I need about a 1 second exposure when I'm sitting at f8 ISO 100. So I'm gonna have to be patient and wait for a break in the wind so that I can grab this image without the leaves of this sapling moving in the wind. And because they're such a central focal point of the image, I need to make sure that they are sharp, while the leaves in the background are much less important. So actually, it looks like we got a great break in the wind right now. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab this image. I did hike down to the bottom of the falls here, and the view is pretty cool, I'm not gonna lie, but it does feel just a little unbalanced. I can't exactly put my finger on why, I think it's because the way that I'd have to frame this image is as it is right now, which is at 16 millimeters, so a very wide view. And the falls look like they're curving too far to the left before going diagonal to the right across the bottom of the image. Though I am considering trying it out just because it looks like a cool scene, and there's those two saplings off to the far right of the scene that might provide a little bit of balance overall, but I'm just not sure. And unfortunately, there's no way to get higher up, which was what I was hoping to do to get a better view of the top of the falls where the two streams of water split and cascade over the cliffs. But it still might look good, so I think I'm going to try it out. And let me know in the comments below which is your favorite of the two. I did walk only another 10 or 15 feet, and I think I like the framing of this view better than where I was just a moment ago. And I'm going to take the image in this exact frame with the 16 to 35 zoom to about probably 20 millimeters. If I show you ever so slightly up, you'll see in the top left corner of the scene, there's a tree that looks like it broke off this winter. It really takes away from that top left portion of the frame. So with the magic of framing, I am zooming in ever so slightly and tilting the camera angle down, which also gets a little bit more of these rocks over on this side, kind of adding a little bit of interest to the bottom right section of the image. And I also like this sapling off in the distance, which I think paired with the saplings growing on the edge of the cliff over there, it adds enough interest that it pulls the eye through the frame from the falls to the left, the saplings, the curve of the water flowing down to the bottom right. And it just makes a nice smooth transition. And with a long exposure, we'll get some cool streaks of bubbles through the center. So now I'm just waiting for a bit of a break in the wind, and I'm going to grab this image with the R5 and the 16 to 35 set at about 18 millimeters. So I do have the polarizer on, which if I turn it, you will see makes an enormous difference in this scene today because of how wet everything is and all of the different cascading rock faces in the falls. Okay, this is the last perspective of the falls that I'm going to take, I swear this time, before I move on and try to find something else to see before it starts to rain or I just run out of daylight. I'm going to do a vertical composition with this bunch of ferns down as the foreground element, this sweeping dead tree holding up the giant rock as the midground point of interest, along with the two waterfalls coming around it, and the upper falls behind with the saplings growing in from all directions. I also think there's just a little bit of light poking through at the top, which should give some interesting contrast and light through the scene as it cascades down through. And that way the eye can follow from the top of the falls all the way down around the rock, out of the left side of the frame with a number of points of interest throughout. And I hope it's not too busy, but I think it's by far the most interesting of the three different scenes that I've seen so far for this falls. Okay, one other super important thing to always keep in mind when out hiking around and looking for subjects in the woods is to always remember to look down. So if I zoom in, I really like how these small little turkey tails are growing right next to this patch of lichen on this down tree stump. And so I have focus stacked this image because I'm zoomed so far in with my 100 to 400. First on the lichen, and then second on these turkey tails. And I'm going to merge those two together and zoomed into about 300 millimeters straight down. So even with that in consideration, the background will probably be nice and soft across the top of the turkey tails, separating them from the wet leaves below. So this is a cool, unexpected bonus find on my hike back to my car, and I think this one looks really, really cool. Well, I hope you enjoyed the images from this hike today. It's starting to rain a little bit more, so I'm going to hike back up the mountain to my car and call it a day. Lots of interesting things to see now that it's finally spring, and the rain is making everything bright and fluorescent green, as well as ensuring that the water level in the creek is flowing nice and strong. So definitely a very cool hike, and one that I'm looking forward to doing again. So thanks as always for watching, and I look forward to seeing you again in the next one.